might be smarter, your family might come from privilege, your daddy might own a company, but you will not outwork me.
Good morning. So most of you know by now that I took a speaking engagement over the weekend, and it was pretty awesome. So I've had several people ask me, how did I overcome the fear of actually being able to stand in front of people and speak? And so the really important thing that I want to highlight is that I am an extreme introvert. So me standing in front of a crowd of people is huge. Anyone that is an introvert understands stage fright. It's like one of the worst feelings ever. It almost feels like you're going to die. It really is that bad. It's so for people that's not an introvert, to kind of get the understanding, it's like having a panic attack. If you've ever had anything close to a panic attack or an anxiety attack, it just feels like everything is just like pounding, like your heart is going to explode, like you're going to sweat, like any minute you're going to cry. You know how you hear people and they're talking and they get nervous and you can hear it in their voice. So that's kind of like what it is for a person that's not used to standing up and speaking in front of people. And then because you know that may happen, then it's even scarier because you're like, I don't want to be up there, and my voice starts cracking and I start crying. Because I mean, it's not like you're scared like something's going to happen, but it's just the fear of standing up in front of people and talking. And for me, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I think my biggest fear always comes from will people understand what I'm trying to relay? Will people judge me? Will people be like, she wasn't that great? So what I was able to do, because I want to give some pointers or some tips, and it's not just for someone that may be interested in public speaking, because we have so many fears. And let me just say that first. Fear is like really huge. Like fear is almost to the point where you can die from it. Like, you know how they say, or you maybe not. So there's a saying that when something happens to a person, when a traumatic event happens to a person, they don't die from the traumatic event. They die from shock. So sometimes when a person gets burnt or shot or hit or, whatever the case may be, sometimes people don't necessarily die from the hit or the shot or whatever it is, the event that happened. Sometimes people die from shock. So several years ago on the 4th of July, I was barbecuing with my best friend, and I lifted up the top of the barbecue grill, and the fire came flying out of the grill. It burnt my eyebrows, my hairline, my face. Like I had a big scar here, burnt a lot of my arm. Thank God all of it was first degree burn. So to this day, you can't even tell it happened. But the thing is when I was in the ambulance, they weren't nervous that I was burnt, because they couldn't even look at me and tell that I was burnt, but they were nervous because I was going into shock, and shock was sending me to death. And at some point, because the burn, even though you couldn't see it, I could feel it, and it just felt like internally I was burning from the inside out. And I remember at some point it felt like I was getting to the point where it was like I was screaming, but it was like no one could help this burning feeling stop hurting. So what I did is I started talking to myself internally to calm myself down. And as I calmed myself down, then I could feel myself relax. But the fear from the paramedics was that I was going into shock and that I was about to die, because then they started screaming. Now, mind you, I'm calm. When I was screaming, they were fine. They were just talking and doing what they had to do. But then when I got calm, then they got nervous. And then they started screaming, "Ma'am, are you okay? Talk to us." And it was really weird at that moment. Mind you, I'm telling you a story that happened, I don't know, this happened almost 10 years ago. This was a really long time ago. I don't even think I had my second daughter, so it had to at least be 10 years ago. But as I got calm, they became nervous, because shock has been known to kill people. So I wouldn't have died from the burns, because they were only first degree burns. I think on my arm I may have had 2-degree burns. But The shock, they thought I was going into shock, which meant if I went into shock, they were trying to make sure that I didn't go to the next level, which was death. But I was just kind of keeping myself calm because I was tired of screaming that I'm in pain and it hurts. And so for me, it was a mechanism to calm myself down. So I tell you that story because it's very similar to what I did on Saturday at the speaking engagement. Kind of the same concept, which is really weird. So for anyone that's listening and you may be an introvert, or even if you're not an introvert, it is just things that you're really scared or shy to do because of fear. Again, fear is very powerful. It's very similar to shock. So that's one of the steps I did. I talked to myself to calm myself down. And don't be afraid when people around you start getting nervous because they're like, why are you so calm? And like, but it's how you're calming yourself down to prepare for whatever it is that you need to do. And so one of the things that I did on Saturday at the speaking engagement, it was kind of the very similar things, which is why I'm telling the story. Before it started, I started talking to myself. I'm pumping myself up in my head. You got this, girl. You can do this. You're going to be Bob. They going to love you. Now, mind you, I'm saying all of this in my head. I'm not saying this out loud because I don't want to appear crazy. But don't get me wrong. If I had the opportunity to say it out loud, I would have said it out loud. But at the same time, I was saying it in my head. You got this, girl. You was made for this. This is your song. You got this. And see, what's even funnier is that I don't even come across as an introvert, even on social media. But on social media, no one's watching me. I'm just talking to a camera. You guys are either going to watch it or you're not. You're going to judge it or you're not. It doesn't matter because you're not in my face where I can see you. So it even makes it easier. So even here, I don't come across as an introvert, which is still hard for people to believe sometimes. But trust me, if you know me personally, I am an extreme introvert. And so it's funny because what I did is when it was time for me to get up there and to deliver my speech, I opened with, or some of what I opened with was, it's funny that I'm here because I'm an extreme introvert and I'm standing in front of people. And how many people do you know that's introverts that would actually do this? And so I think people didn't really believe me because they're looking like, nah, because you're talking, you're here, you're doing this. But that's the key. It's fear is saying, Narita, you can't do this because you're shy, you're scared, you're nervous, you're an introvert. And so I'm sharing this particular story because I was able to do it anyway because I did. One, I pumped myself up. I told myself I could do it. And then two, I acknowledged the fear. So I didn't let the fear back me down. I said, no, we're going to do this and we're going to stand here and we're not going to try to hide that we're scared. We're going to tell everyone. We're going to tell everyone, I am nervous. I am scared. So if at any point in my head, I was saying at any point, if my nerves started coming up and I could hear it in my voice, they'll understand. That's what I was telling myself. But I didn't realize at the time I was just really acknowledging it. I was putting it out there, letting fear know that you can't stop me. And so it actually worked. I started delivering my message and into it, I could feel that fear rising up again. And it started talking loud in my head. And it was saying, you can't do this. No one cares. What you're saying is not important. And see, that's how fear works. Fear is always telling you, you can't do it. No one cares. No one wants to hear it. What you're saying is not important. Who cares? That's fear. Fear is talking loud in your head. You can feel it in your body, in everything, like in your every essence of your movement. And so what I was able to do is when I could feel it rising up in me as I'm trying to tell my story to everyone, I stopped and I said, guys, it is so funny because I am an extreme introvert. And so for me to stand here and do this is really amazing. And so what I did is I allowed fear to be acknowledged once again, but you're not going to back me down. And so I hope you guys are kind of catching on to what I'm saying. So what I was doing is I allowed fear to exist within me at that moment when I had to deliver my speech by acknowledging it, giving it its acknowledgement. But I didn't allow it to back me down and push me down and tell me I can't do this. And sometimes that's just what we need to do. It's things that you want to do and you want to step out and you want to make it happen. You can make it happen. But you have to acknowledge that you're even afraid, that you're scared. And then once you do that, then move through it. Find a mechanism, a tool, something that says, okay, this is how I'm going to deal with it. And sometimes you have to think of it before you actually start the process. Sometimes it comes to you because I didn't think of in the midst of having this speech, that I could acknowledge fear and then keep going. In my head, I just was like, Lord, please don't let my voice crack. Please don't let me sit up here and start crying. Like, this is going to be so horrible. I'm supposed to be the professional giving them help. And if I start crying, how professional does that look? But what I was able to do in the midst of it was to figure out a tool that would be able to keep me calm and keep them nerves down and suppressed. And so at the end, it was like really powerful for me, because here I am trying to encourage other people to believe, to soar, to fly, to, start the business that they want or believe in their hopes and dreams or whatever. And here it is that I'm actually living mines in the midst of trying to encourage other people. And that's the beauty in all of this. I remember listening to Lisa Nichols, who's a transformation coach, and she said something very important that will always stick to me. And she said one of the ways she was able to get over fear of doing something, was she would always remind herself that God is using his imperfect person to help imperfect people. And that is very, very powerful, because so many times we don't do something because we get caught up in thinking that people are going to judge us, people aren't going to like us, they're not going to receive us, we're going to be rejected, and no one wants to feel rejected. Hear me, this is just not business. This is in business, this is in relationships, this is just across the board. No one wants to be rejected. And so a lot of times we won't do something because we don't want to feel that rejection. We don't want to be open, we don't want to be vulnerable. So we're like, nah, I'd rather not do it. But do it. Do it anyways. Just jump. You have to lose the weight to gain the confidence. Bye, y'all.